Welcome to the Blockchain Hustle.
Why synthetic data should be on your business radar. Let me start with a few headlines. First one from Gartner. Gartner predicts that by 2030, most of the data used in AI will be artificially generated. It will be generated by rules, statistical models, simulations, or other techniques. CV Insights, in its Tech Trends 2024 and in its Gen AI predictions, calls this as a synthetic data bonanza. Researchers estimate that by 2026, we will exhaust high quality data, high quality text data for training the LLMs, the large language models, a trend that will slow down the AI progress. Basically, synthetic data will be key to build high value AI models. Now, machine learning has got two key cogs. One is hardware compute, and the other one is good data. I covered on the AI hardware compute in my previous two episodes. They were titled uh, Decoding the AI Hardware Game, and the second one was Deciphering the Price Tag of AI Hardware Power. And in today's session, we delve into the data part. What is synthetic data and why synthetic data should be on your business radar? Now, what is the best source of for insights and analytics? It is the real data. But what do you do in its absence? What if it is unavailable, or it is imbalanced, or it is cannot be used? It's unusable due to privacy or ethical considerations, some regulatory issues, or if it is downright expensive. So, what are the alternatives in this case? The answer: synthetic data. So, what is synthetic data? Let us unravel the mystery behind this term. You can define synthetic data as a data generated artificially. Of course, as per the term, as per the name. It's a data generated artificially via computer simulations, algorithms, and it is commonly used as an alternative to the real data, the real world data, while addressing the privacy and the ethical considerations. It is quite often described also as artificially annotated data or artificially annotated information. It's kind of like having a backup plan when you do not have access to the real world data, when it is either unavailable, or it is too costly, or it is simply fraught with the privacy concerns. So the question comes: is synthetic data and mock data the same? No, 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 no. Synthetic data is not just a fake data trying to sneak into some cool kids party. While mock data might resemble the real data, it is the resemblance is only superficial. It's not real, it's not in depth. Synthetic data mirrors the real data in terms of the structure, in terms of the complexity, in terms of the statistics, and so forth. It is as close to the real data as possible. And it is also not quite the same as augmented data. Augmented data involves modifying existing images, existing data. It could be, for example, you take some real data, you can rotate it, you can brighten the image, for example, to get a new image, to get some new data. Or you could blend two real images and you get a third image, which is a synthetic one. But it is an augmented one. You are not generating it from scratch. Synthetic data is generated from scratch. Now, what are the different types of synthetic data? Typically, we categorize synthetic data into four general buckets: tabular data, time series data, media, and the text data. Now, tabular data, as the name suggests, is synthetic data which is organized in things in a format like the tables. It is like your real life data logs. and it comes in very handy, useful for the classification tasks. Applications could include things like fraud detection, understanding or analyzing the social media for the user responses, user behavior, for the marketing and advertising campaigns, for the customer responses. These are some of the examples where tabular data comes in handy. The second one is your time series data. Now, time series data is very similar to the tabular data, except for one factor which is included into it, and that is a link to time, a time factor. And it comes in very useful when you're talking about financial predictions, for trading, for market predictions, for recording of the transactions, and also, let's say, for monitoring the components in the machines in robotics. So there is a time aspect included into it. The third category of synthetic data is media. Now, this media can be in the format of image, video, or sound. And it comes in very useful in the computer vision applications. And the fourth one is your text data, where your synthetic data generated is in the form of text. It's useful in NLP, the natural language processing. So when you are developing chatbots, when you are checking for spam in your inboxes, and the synthetic data you resort to in these times is your text data, the generated text data. Now, why should businesses care about synthetic data? Why is synthetic data gaining importance now? Well, its biggest claim to fame is that it provides a substitute for real data. Real data which can be not accessible, or if it is accessible, it cannot be used due to the different reasons cited earlier. Then, what do developers need from the data when they are training their models, their large language models, their neural networks? Number one, they need this data for training, what they require. They need this data to be largely carefully labeled. Data that would span across various possible combinations of the real life events and conditions. And that includes the edge cases. Edge cases are the scenarios which do not commonly occur. They may be on the fringe, but there is a probability that they may occur. And so your models need to be trained on it. You cannot afford to not include those scenarios into your model training. And this data may not be always available, maybe because the cases, those edge cases, have never happened. So, what do you do in those cases? Then they need data to be rich, diverse, and it has to be unbiased. And they don't want to get embroiled into any privacy or copyright issues when they're using the data for their neural networks. And above all, this data should help to improve their model's performance, its accuracy, and its efficiency. And of course, it would not hurt if they can access this data in a cost and a time effective manner. And that's where synthetic data sets come in handy. They fill in the gap of the real world data when unavailable or unusable. And this power to create these multiple variations of the real data, it's a hugely important use case to generate synthetic data for the machine learning. Gathering and the labeling of data is also very time consuming and quite often very expensive. Synthetic data is automatically labeled. Synthetic data augments your real data, and it improves your model outcome. It increases the accuracy of your ML models, the machine learning models. It reduces hallucinations, that is, making incorrect guesses, which is a very often cited problem now in the machine learning world. It covers various permutations and combinations of your different real world cases, including your edge cases. And one of the more important factor here is that it does so while preserving the correlations amongst the various data variables without linking the data to the data identifier. And it's a big thing when you're talking about the privacy issues. It's a better way to anonymize data. It is generated from scratch instead of the general terms of masking it, randomizing it. It kind of eliminates your re identification risks. And because of all these, synthetic data helps a lot in collaboration. It facilitates data sharing, whether it is of sensitive data like your medical records, of your financial transactions, or it is like sharing data across different arms of the enterprise or across different enterprises for that matter. Teams can freely share the data and work with the synthetic data. The bottom line, and I cite from Gartner's report here, you won't be able to build high quality, high value AI models without synthetic data. And that's quite a powerful statement. Well, one may say, well, all this sounds very nice and trendy, but are there companies actually using it? Are there any real world examples for this? Well, there are, and let me cite a few here. One of them is fraud detection, and I give you a few examples here. Elevance Health, which is an American health insurance provider, it was previously called Anthem. Elevance Health uses synthetic data to detect fraud, and it also uses it for delivering personalized services for its customers, for its members. American Express trained the AI fraud prevention models on synthetic data. And in order to cover the various edge cases, the various fraud variations, uh, American Express augmented its real world data set with the synthetic data set. Another application where it is being used is in the chatbot development. Now, there's a startup called MoveWorks. Now, MoveWorks leveraged it as the real world data accessible to it was limited. So, not everybody has access to real data, especially the smaller companies. So, what do they do in that case where they don't have it? They go for synthetic data. And it is not just the startups, the smaller companies, which are being limited with the real world data. It's also the bigger companies. For example, Amazon. Amazon trained Alexa on synthetic data to recognize requests in the multiple languages. It is useful when the data pool of requests for the machine learning model is poor. There are not so many cases or so many instances for them to train their model on. So they use synthetic data to augment their real data set. Another application where it is being used is the churn model simulation. And you have an example from the Swiss insurance company called La Mobilier, which uses synthetic data to train its churn model. And using the synthetic data, it could overcome the privacy issues and it could obtain data for its compliance model training, which, if it had not used that, would have been very costly and fraught with different complexities. Synthetic data is also being used by companies to make their operations more efficient. And there are a number of examples here. One of them is BMW. Now, BMW has created a virtual factory. It's created a virtual factory with a digital twin. So you have a virtual factory and then you have a physical factory. It created the virtual factory using NVIDIA's Omniverse, which is a simulation platform for making digital twins, for example. And it generated data which helped it to fine tune how the assembly line workers can work along with the robots towards building their cars a little bit more efficiently. While on the cars, Ford researchers combined the gaming engines with GAN. GAN is your generative adversarial networks. They used GANs to create synthetic data for their AI training. PepsiCo uses synthetic data to train its AI models towards more efficient operations. Then you have the example of JP Morgan. JP Morgan uses it to speed its data intensive proof of concepts projects, which is working with the third party vendors. Telefonica uses it for analytics. And Waymo uses synthetic data sets to train its self driving vehicles. It uses synthetic database data sets to augment the real data, especially when you have all these, these edge cases under the various scenarios which can possibly happen. So these are a few real life examples where synthetic data is presently being used. Now comes the question, how do I generate synthetic data? How is synthetic data created? Well, there are a few techniques by which you do so, and I share a few here. The most common one is generative models. These models create synthetic data using ML algorithms, the machine learning algorithms. You feed in some real data into these algorithms, into these models, and then these models would try to figure out or learn the underlying patterns under this with this real data, and using those patterns, it will create new data, which is your synthetic data. And it would use some models like your GANs, the generative adversarial networks, to figure out the difference between the synthetic data and the real data. So GANs have this discriminator part, which will try to see how close the synthetic data is to the real data. And after that, it will try to fine tune it with the aim to make the synthetic data as close to the real data as possible. You can also use VAEs, which are your variational autoencoders, and your autoregressive models. Then you have something called rules engines. These engines, they generate synthetic data using some predefined business rules. You could also do some random sampling of values from specific distributions that simulate the real data. And then towards the periphery, you have a couple more, which are like entity cloning, where you collect all the business data, you obscure it, and then you replicate it. And another one is data masking, where you will hide the sensitive or the personal information. Now, you can use any of these methods, and they can be used individually or in combination. And each method has its pros and cons, but they have the same target, the same aim, which is to produce data, to generate data, which is as close to the real data as possible. That's the end objective. Of course, synthetic data is not without its challenges. It's not a pure magic bullet. It can be computationally intensive, especially when you're dealing with very complex data sets which are highly dimensional. And then there's always the risk of overfitting. But having said that, despite these limitations, synthetic data offers a very promising solution to many of the data related challenges that the businesses are facing today. Lastly, let me share a few synthetic data companies which are out there in the market. In the tabular data generation space, you have companies like Mostly AI, GenRocket, YData, MD Clone, Hazy. In the time series data generation, you have Gretel, again mostly AI, Hazy, Status is now a part of the Ananos data embassy. Then you have under the media generation, under sound, you have Replica. Under the image and the video data, you have OneView, NVIDIA Omniverse, which I cited earlier, CVIDIA, DataGen, Parallel Domain. And Gretel again comes in for the text data generation. So this is just a brief share of just a few companies which are out there in this market. The idea is to give you an idea of what these different companies are. So whether you're a startup looking to develop AI models or you are an MNC which is exploring new avenues for innovation, making your operations more efficient, or trying to get more bang for your bucks, synthetic data should definitely be on your radar. It's not just a trend, it's a game changer in the world of data driven decision making. Well, that's it from my side. Thank you for your attention and time. If you do have any comments or queries, I would love to hear them. You can reach out to me at minu@minusareen.com. My Twitter handle is minusareen, and my contact details are here. Of course, you can always leave a comment down in the comment box. So, till the next one, see you later. Cheers.